It is just a huge honor to be sitting in my home on a Saturday night having Demetrios Brooks stop by. Thank you so much for stopping by. He was down here Thursday speaking at the very prestigious Paradise Valley Study Club. And it's very hard to get a speaking gig there. And then the next day, we bumped into each other at what was the it was
at the Summit convention.
And who's the guy at the Summit?
It's Dr. Cooper. And Dr.
Mark Cooper.
Mark Cooper and Dr. Cooper.
See, I never can remember Mark Cooper's name because the first 30 years I know him, I only knew him as the Swami. And everybody called him the Swami. I didn't even know he had another name. And but now we podcast him, Mark Cooper. So let me read your bio. Demetrios earned his undergraduate degree from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. So you went to school there and for a business management and further pursued his master's in business administration with a concentration in human resource management from SHRM University. During his tenure at SHRM University, he was nominated as the head of student advisory board from the faculty and staff for the graduate and undergraduate chapter. He has received his Society for Human Resource Management Certified Professional Certification. Known for his professionalism, his eager to build long-term relationships and create client-oriented solutions, Demetrios is always seeking to find a win-win situation. Demetrios is a dental business management systems consultant that assists dentists in developing their practice and improving their bottom line. He works directly with some of the largest banks in the nation that control over $3.7 billion in dental practice assets and expansion funding. In 2014, Demetrios became the Chief Operating Officer of GMAX Dental Services Network. He works directly with group practices, solo practitioners, MSOs, and DSOs. Since then, they have placed over 127 different companies and over 9,000 keywords on the first page of Google. GMAX is also a Google Certified AdWords partner. GMAX, also known as Google Max Marketing, has an A+ rating with the BBB since 2012. Demetrios believes that one of the paradigm shifts in dentistry is having a turnkey dental assisting program that operates inside the practice during non-clinical hours. He works with practices across the nation in providing the opportunity for doctors to make a positive difference in communities and creating passive income while still providing quality care. Thanks so much for coming over.
Thank you.
And so you're headquartered out of Dallas, Texas.
Out of Dallas, yes.
But your favorite team is still the Arizona Cardinals.
It is the Cowboys, I have to say.
Oh, end of podcast. End of podcast. God, go on. So you were speaking at one of the oldest study clubs, Paradise Valley. So what were you talking about Thursday night? What were you passionate about at the study club?
What we normally do is we do lunch and learns, and we just show them how they can actually increase production with dealing with implants, also with ortho, and how to do dental assistant schools within their practice after hours. And so we went over strategies on what different locations do, exactly what the process is, so they can learn how to create some passive income for their location.
What was the website?
The website is www.yourdentalassistantschool.com.
I love the definition of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who can make money while they're sleeping. And if, dentistry, it's all hands on surgery. So if you're pushing a lawnmower, if you're a welder, a plumber, a dentist, a surgeon, if you can only make money working with your hands, there's no scale. It's hard to be an entrepreneur. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, I agree because you're limited on what you can do because you only have so many hands. So if you have two hands, you can only do that. So the ultimate goal for an entrepreneur, I believe, is to have the leverage to have somebody else that you shadow underneath you. And as they grow, then you'll have somebody doing your work for you and you reap the benefits.
And I've been doing this 30 years. I mean, I've had lots of friends that just lost like vision in one eye, where they had an eye problem, a trauma surgery. But you're one injury away from not being a surgeon. I mean, right. Dentistry is all surgery, and whereas physicians, 80% of them never cut on anybody. Dentistry is very, very tied to your health. You lose your health, you lose your wealth in dentistry.
Absolutely.
So what were you talking about mostly? Were you talking about the implants, the ortho, or the dental assisting school?
We're talking about all three, and so we like to make sure that we cover all three grounds. And the biggest factor is if you were able to increase gross production substantially, over 400%, what would you do? So that was one of the questions that we asked. And so it's about growth. What would you do? You're going to get staff, you're going to get more locations, you're going to expand. And so we had a great conversation on what to do, and we were just sharing ideas on how to increase cash flow.
So now you're working with group practices, solo practitioners, MSOs, DSOs. What are they interested in?
The biggest thing that I've noticed recently that they're interested in is it's just a common frustration of having extra help that you need. And so when you centralize whatever you need in your practice, or whatever you have multiple practices, having something to have a actual systematic approach, that's the biggest key factor, making sure you have a process and everything in place, so whenever you grow to that next level, it will be a lot smoother transition.
Do you, when you talk about that, you work with some of the largest banks that control over $3.7 billion in dental practices. Are those mostly solo practitioners where one dentist buys a practice and runs their practice, or is this more corporate DSOs, multiple location group practices?
Mainly group practices, and
Group.
you can also have solo as well. And so that's the echelon. So you can start if you're a solo practitioner and you're just getting out of school and need help with funding. We have something to where we can actually show the new associates that are coming out what to do business-wise, what to do as a clinician, and exactly all the steps that you need to grow. And so that's what we do to start off.
And what website is that for you?
I'm sorry?
And what website would that young dental graduate go to contact you and learn more about that?
gmaxseo.com. And so what that does is allows them to see how you can actually grow your practice. And so we go into the information. One of the most important factors that we have noticed, but actually having the right type of marketing that's needed in order to grow your practice. So it's really important to understand those different steps that's needed to grow.
So how long have you been in the dental space in Dallas, would you say?
And focusing on the dental space has been around 2012. Is when I
2012.
actually started focusing on the dental space. I did do a lot of business consulting work. I learned the corporate America area on how to build a structure, deal with the profit and loss reports. We sat down and went over the financials. And so that aspect I was able to bring into the dental space. So around 2012, 2013, I started primarily focusing on that area.
But where do you so you've been in the Dallas area concentrated just on dentistry since 2012. How much has it gone corporate versus the old model of individual solo practitioner? And where do you think that trend will be in like 10 years, 20 years? I mean, do you think it's rapidly changing towards corporate, or?
Well, not always just a rapid change, but I believe there's a gradual change towards some of the corporate locations. It just depends on the practitioners. Some practitioners are just anti-corporate, so they prefer not to have that type of surrounding. Some are just want to have group practices, and they want to still have that private freedom. And so it just depends on what the clinician is looking for. And so that's the biggest key factor.
You know, we keep hearing that the millennials are different, but I think every generation since the beginning of time thinks their children and the next generation is different or not as good or whatever, and then it turns out by the time they're all grandparents are all the same. I think we all turn into our dad, is what I'm saying. And I don't know, it's just hard. It's hard to think that someone went to school 8 years to be an employee. I mean, when they were little and wanted to be a dentist, the dentist that they were modeling after was a solo practitioner. Mm-hmm. So it just doesn't make sense that I'm little, I go to, before corporate, I go to the dentist. They're all solo practitioners. I get out of dental school and say, no, I want to join a big corporate. Do you think a lot of that joining corporate is because back in the day there was hardly any student loan debt, and now they're walking out of there $1/3 or $500,000 in debt?
Well, I think the shift is as in using multiple sources in order to get to the end result. For example, if you had somebody that's going to have to get $100 million in order to get multiple practices, if you have just one person paying that dollar amount, it's astronomical. But if you have 10, 12, 30, 40, 50 people that divided evenly, that's where you start getting the group power. So it kind of reminds me of more of like a Costco or Sam's Club, to where you have those type of membership discounts. And so as protecting the bottom line, that's why some are actually leaning towards it way.
So what do you when you said you were talking about dental assisting school, ortho, and dental implants, I noticed one thing they all have in common is those are fees not set by insurance companies. Insurance companies set the fees on cleaning, exams, x-rays, fillings, say you sign up for this plan, you can only charge this much. And it seems like a lot of people are getting into implants and braces or dental assisting school because the fees aren't set, so they can have a healthier margin. What do you? Let's go through those. What do you like about dental implants? So we'll do ortho, then we'll do dental assisting school. What do you?
Well, the biggest thing about implants is knowing that somebody has the ability to have a replacement. If they're missing any type of tooth, they have a replacement that has a sound, actually a sound foundation. And so as they do implants, it makes the client feel a lot better, because whether you can choose dentures or you can choose implants. One, it just depends on the preference, but a lot of times it's just the durability of implants. But as in for practice and production wise, it's astronomical what a practice can bring just doing implants. And so that's why implantology has been very popular, and that's why a lot of your general practices are doing more, because it actually helps increase some of the production.
And the same reasons ortho, or?
Ortho is, for me, I believe for ortho is more about the longevity of a client. So if you can have somebody when they're 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, you have a family member that, say for example, you have a son that goes there. If they have a sister, if they have a brother, if they have an aunt, uncle, or anybody that goes with them, you can actually treat their whole family. So ortho is a great way to increase production by treating the whole family, because normally they're there for a child. And so that's why ortho has been very lucrative for a lot of the practices.
And what are your what would someone expect from a dental assisting school? Is this something that your
assistant will run it? They'll actually do it, for example, in the evening time or on the weekend. And so they'll allow the doctor to stay. They can be at home. They can do whatever they need to do and still generate cash flow while the location is closed. And that's why that's very, very interesting for some of the docs that we work with.
So what will my homies find if they go to your dental assistant school, yourdentalassistantschool.com? What are they going to find at your dental assistant?
What they're going to find is basically how it works. Just an example of what you can do, what your options are, a little bit about myself, a little about what we do, and show you how you can actually do it. And there's different ways that you can do it in different states. So as we work in all 50 states, we customize anything that we need toward each specific state. So they'll actually get a handful of value from our customer service. They'll actually get a chance to see some of our FAQs, a lot of the questions that get answered. And we want to be very transparent. We like to be very transparent for all of our future clients.
And how much does this cost for a dentist? How does he get involved? Tell us the finance of it.
Well, the finance of it depends on the state. There's certain states that cost more than others, so it's kind of hard to just say exactly what is the actual cost of it for a specific state. But I know as of right now, for anything other than New York and California, you're looking at about $33,500, and that allows them to get
$3,350.
$33,000.
33,000.
Correct.
Okay, 33,500.
Correct.
Other than New York or California.
Other than New York and California.
And then it's more expensive there.
Correct.
Yeah. So are they buying a franchise for a zip code, a city, a county, or
normally,
is it franchise, or is it?
It's not a franchise. It actually has similar to a franchise model without the franchise fees. The biggest thing about it is actually a turnkey system. So some situations you actually have it to where you just get a curriculum and you do your own thing. But we want to make sure that you get everything you need. Make sure you get a website. Make sure that you get the whole package. Make sure you get all your clinical supplies, your instructional supplies. And we market for the students. We do all the enrollments. If each location has a dedicated phone number, so you will actually not even get a call to your practice. So you can focus on the patient. So When they do that, we help enroll the students answer their questions, so it's fully turnkey to where they virtually don't even know it's really there, but receive income from it.
And how does a dentist attract people in the area to that want to be? How does he find people who want to be a dental assistant? I assume that's all Google AdWords or.
Google AdWords are very popular. That's one of our key elements and what our strength is. And also too, as you have clients that come in, a lot of times they may ask about being a dental assistant or ask questions about it. And so, as in your own market, you can actually drum up some students as well.
Yeah. So, how many states are you in? Is it going well? Do dentists like it?
It's going very well, and we work in all 50 states. And
All
so
50 states.
there's no regulations to where we go. And we're actually going to be growing in Canada as well. And so that's going to be added to what we
Well, actually, you're a football player. In Canada, they play hockey, and there are no teeth.
So that's the best place for implants.
Yeah, you'd have to go up there and put implants on before. I noticed also in the 30 years I've been a dentist that 30 years ago, all the assistants were girls. But with the loss of 50 million manufacturing jobs, now 2 of my assistants are boys. My office manager's a male. When I look at the Bureau of Land BLS data, men are trending up rapidly into healthcare, hospitals, dentists, nursing homes. Are you seeing that trend with dental assisting too? More males entering the profession?
Yes, there has been more than before. There has been. And I guess it's just one of those trends to where they're very curious about the medical industry. It's just certain people, when they get out of school, they don't want to be a waiter. They want to be a waitress. They rather get into an environment that's more friendly, more patient friendly. And so that's been a pretty big trend.
And almost all the ones I know in Arizona, they're like, my dad and brothers work outside in the summer in Arizona. It's 118 degrees. And they, just to go inside is, if you live in Arizona, that's huge for half the year. So what do you also do practice management consulting?
Correct.
And what problems are you seeing in the field, and what solutions are you giving people that are, how are you helping people in dentistry?
One of the top issues is not patients, and it's surprising. It's more of employees. And so that's been the common theme. Turnover, whether you have a disgruntled employee, how do you deal with time clock issues, how to deal with just the operational side, how to keep that part organized, how do you communicate everything from your culture to your mission to your staff and have them embedded in their culture as well. That's been the biggest challenge that I've noticed so far.
Yeah, if I line up 100 dentists and say, what keeps you up at night? They never say root canals, fillings, and crowns. They say my assistant's fighting with the hygienist, my overhead's going up, my staff all wants a raise. It's usually always HR are paying the bills. It's money, finance. It's kind of like marriage. They said a third of marriage divorces are over money. And
I think that's really good because my MBA is human resource management, and that's the reason why I like working with the different doctors, because I like to share ideas on what they can do to grow, be more effective, how to make a more positive environment for your staff. They actually have to sell to them to let them know how much you really care, because if you're genuine about what you do, you'll be surprised how many practitioners have staff that sticks 10, 20, 30 years with them because they're genuine from the very beginning, and they're open. And so that really makes a big ordeal when you're working as a team. Any idea is an idea. And there's no such thing really as a bad idea, but just having ideas from different people, it'll help you grow better. Because I know you probably know quite a bit, but I know I don't know much, but it's good to have different ideas, and that's what really, really makes the practice grow.
Well, I think a lot of dentists create an environment of the staff are fearful to share their idea. The office doesn't like change. They don't like new ideas, and I think the thing you have to do is make them feel safe to communicate and share ideas, and the dentist doesn't have to do it. That's the other thing I always tell dentists. They're always, when they're comparing it working like three different places, they always come back with the money, the pay, the hourly. Is it salary? Is it hourly? Do I pay the lab bill? Do you pay the lab bill? Whatever. And I always say, forget all of that. Go in there and find out the staff turnover. I mean, if the average dentist, if the average employee here is 12 years, this is 6 years, this is 2 years, run from the 2 and run to the 12. One of the biggest problems with dentists is you have an MBA, you have a concentration in human resources. It seems like everything the physician and dentist learned didn't prepare them for the outside world. I mean, they got A's in calculus, geometry, and physics, and then they graduate and they never use those ever again the rest of their life. They never care about the Krebs cycle or any of that stuff. And then they go out there and they have to do HR, and they have to be a leader. Well, we just had 6,000 kids graduate from 56 dental schools last week. How does a 24-year-old kid become a leader?
Well, leadership is, some have given leadership skills. There are some that have that, but it can actually be developed. If you work on yourself and work on going to those type of classes, read those type of books, if you have an exponential learning curve or are eager to learn that part, that's where your sources come from. A lot of reading, a lot of workshops, I wish they had more of those in school itself, but the reality is you just don't put a DDS or a DMD on the door and people just come in, and that's one factor of getting patients. The next factor is dealing with your staff. So if you're not experiencing that, go to somebody that's a specialist in that area. Lean on them, have them on payroll, have them started so you won't have that hurdle, because the biggest issue is trying to save cash flow. So if you try to do it yourself, it is cheaper, but you have more headache, more turmoil that you deal with because you're not just experiencing the area. So it's good to go with the expert that you know that can help, somebody you can put on retainer, somebody you can ask questions with, or do it yourself. So it just depends on the person's preference.
I think the biggest problem with turnover in dentistry is that, when you go buy a bottle of water or a glass of grape juice or an iPhone or a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you know what you're getting. But when I walk into your oil changing facility and you say, and I came in for the oil change, you said you need to flush your transmission fluid or air filter. I don't know if that's true. When you walk in my house, I say you have 4 cavities and they're $250 each. It's $1,000 and I don't feel any pain. I have to trust you. And if every time I come in here, it's a different assistant, it's a different hygienist, it's a different, it just destroys trust. I mean, when you're selling the invisible, I think long-term staff is key.
It is key. And also, in addition to long-term staff being a key, is how to keep your staff engaged. How to keep them engaged and how to actually delegate duties to the staff and hold them accountable. When you actually get those 2 key factors down, it makes it a lot easier, because the one of the paradigms is you can tell somebody what to do, but sometimes you don't want to follow up and see if they did it because you want to be the bad boss or the bad guy. But sometimes you have to just address situations like they are, and that's a big key factor for some of the new docs that are coming out of school.
I love this chart. I forgot who did this. I'm sorry. I love it on delegating. If it's important and urgent, do it now. If it's not important but urgent, delegate. If it's important and not urgent, plan it. Take time to plan it. But if it's not important and not urgent, then drop it. So not important, not urgent, don't even do it. If it's not important but urgent, delegate it. And I think that back to dental assisting school, I think if all you did was suction spit all day long, 40 hours a week, 20, 30, 40 years, that would be boring and burnout. I think many assistants could be, they can take over sundries and supplies. They can be your marketing coordinator with whoever you're marketing. There's so many tasks that they can do.
And I believe that's true because they're more than just one. They can have their back office. You can have anybody can do back office, and over time, it's one of those things that you want to grow. So I've seen more of a trend of more of a hybrid, more of your / front office assistants that are coming along because you would like them to work the back office correctly, but in the front, are they going to check in and check out patients correctly? Do they know how to do some effective treatment plans? So having a hybrid is really important because you might have an office manager that's their son or daughter is sick and they can't make it in that day, so who's going to actually take over and help if you don't have anybody else? So I think being more diverse, only than just being a back office, that's really, really what a lot of the assistants, I believe, really just need to look into as they grow and be more marketable for any type of practice they work for.
Do you see on your dentalassistingschools.com, has this been something for dentists having their assistant do this, where their assistant kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur, so the assistant started doing this, or?
Well, it came originally from the frustration of a quality dental assistant. That's where it originated. And so the dental assistant can run it. And so that's what we want. And it really brings a growth path, because if you have assistants that's been doing the same thing over and over, this gives them the opportunity to teach others in an actual classroom type situation. So it seemed like it's a slight promotion, because they really feel the importance of teaching others, but when they do it, they can have extra income for themselves as well, extra hours, because there's certain locations that are looking for extra hours. So if you have somebody that you really like that works well, but you just can't give them enough hours, this is a great opportunity for them to actually teach other assistants.
So how long is dental assisting school? How many hours and months is it usually?
Well, it's a 12-week course, and
12 weeks, so 3 months.
3 months, and it's 11 hours a week. And so what that time...
So 12 weeks, you said 12 weeks at 11 hours a week?
Correct.
Okay, 12 weeks, 11 hours a week, okay.
And so in that process, you have 50% is going to be your lecture time in the morning, and then your second half is going to be your hands-on. And the second half, honestly, we've been hearing that the hands-on piece has been the most effective part. And so when they do that, you go over the material, then you apply it. It's all about application. So people can read a book about riding a bike, but if you don't get on a bike, you'll never know. You'll never.
So
know
do they
that.
do the hands-on during your regular clinical hours, so they can be assisting the dentist that's there? Is that where the hands-on is?
Well, initially it's going to be in the operatory on Dexter. They use the mannequin with the type it on, and also on each other. So just to get the basics down, that's the first initial training process for them. And as they get a little better, then they can shadow and do some extern and work inside of practice as well.
So what does a dental assistant student usually pay for the 12-week course, 11 hours a week for 12 weeks?
Well, it varies depending on the state and the city. So you're looking between $3,000 to up to around $4,000 or $5,000 range, between $3,000 to $5,000.
$3,000 to $5,000?
Correct.
Yeah, and a lot of the dental assisting schools out here, a lot of them are $12,000 to $19,000.
Exactly.
Have you seen that?
I have.
Yeah.
And those,
in fact, I was not only am I saddened to see what some of my new homies are coming out of dental school, and I meet some that are $500,000 in debt. I met one guy who was $500,000, and he married a girl in his class. She was out, 2 young 24-year-olds, $1 million in debt for 2 pieces of loan. But I've had dental assistants apply at my office before that had $21,000 in student loans just to come out of dental school, and I'm like, that is a big nut to crack. And that those girls might be 18, 19 years old. It's like you're 18 years old and you're $21,000 in debt. So this is faster, easier, more affordable.
correct. And not as only more affordable, it's that the application, actually doing it hands-on, has been the biggest compliment that we get from our students. They really love it. We have some students that actually came from the $13,000-$14,000 classes and came to our classes to get hands-on.
Now, is this one associated with, we're here in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
There's a woman dentist in Dallas who owns a dental office in Phoenix or Scottsdale. Is she in this too? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm not really sure who
Oh,
that
maybe
is.
maybe it's a different school.
Maybe a different school, because they do have that.
Yeah. Well, no, you were the guy we met at the convention.
Mm-hmm.
The father and son.
Mm-hmm.
He had a little son there. I thought that was his mom. What other advice would you give the graduating class of 2017 who a a lot of them think they graduated from doctor school and they're all that now, and they don't realize they just walked out of kindergarten class. And the only thing the dental school did is give them a license to start. And they're just now walking across the street for the first time. And so what advice would you give them coming out of school? This 6,000 students last week.
Number one, be very open to learn. Be very humble. And realize that it's not as easy as it's perceived to be. And it's going to be tough. And you're going to really just start from ground one. You really are. And not only as in being a doctor, but on the business side, because that's the biggest key factor. Learn as much as you can about business, learn as much as you can about all those aspects. And whatever your weak point is, have somebody that can help you with that, guided. Have an associate that's a veteran that's willing to come help the students that come out. Find you somebody that's just more seasoned than you are. Find those resources. That's the most important part, is try to find the resources. Network with your current class. See who has a family of dentists. Just get to know as many people as possible, and go with open ears. And that's the biggest key advice, I believe, is to have open ears.
Yeah, and a lot of those dentists will, like, you're from Dallas, I'm Phoenix. They might come to the Valley here and say, wow, the Valley has 3,800 dentists. Yeah, it has 3,800 dentists Monday through Thursday, but you don't have 800 dentists on Friday, and you have 0 dentists on Sunday. I mean, you literally have 3.8 million people. And the thing, my advice to the millennials is, so many of them come out and they have $350,000 in student loans. Within a year or two, they buy a house, and it's bigger than their parents. On a square foot basis, usually it's bigger than their parents and their grandparents combined. Mm-hmm. And they work Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5. I'm like, did your mom and dad and grandparents ever have a 3-day weekend in their life? And when I see those kids that come out and they're humble, like you said, but they're hungry. I mean, when I see the kids come out and they say, well, I'm working 3 days a week here and 4 days a week here, I'm working 7 days a week, or I'm working, 50, 60 hours a week, that shows they're hungry. That shows the work ethic. And if they're humble and they're hungry and they got a work ethic, I think dentistry is very good. I mean, I've seen people in some of the markets where they should never graduate a dentist for 20 years, like San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And they'll sit there and say, are you kidding me? Every dentist in San Francisco is closed at 5. I basically stay open until 10 p.m. And Saturday and Sunday, I may get 5 emergencies a day, because everyone in this profession thinks they're entitled to Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5. So I love the humble part, but I like the hungry part.
And hungry would get you in a long way. And I remember listening to, I don't remember the person's name. It was a while back. And they said you can have all the intelligence in the world, but if you don't have that grit, that stick-to-itiveness to do what you have to do to grow business, now you're almost into a world of sales. You really are, because you have to sell your staff to let them know that you care. You have to sell to your patients to have them trust you. And so now they're exposed to a whole other realm of, I didn't know I had to do this. I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to do that, but you have to. And that's what it leads to. And so getting that type of guidance is really, really the key factor. Know that you have to know what's best for the patient, but you have to be profitable as well.
It's a weird culture in dentistry. If you refer to a new customer, a new patient as a customer, they think you're from Pluto. And if you go out there and say, I'm going to have a seminar and teach you how to sell dentistry, everybody's like, gross. I mean, why do you think the culture of dentistry is that you're a new patient? You're not a customer. And this is what you need because I'm the doctor and you're not, and you need this and you need to sign here, as opposed to trying to sell. In fact, they don't even measure their conversions. Like, they don't know how many people, new potential customers, have to call before they can convert one to come in. And they don't know how many customers are presented treatment to convert one to drill, fill, and bill. Mm-hmm. I mean, why do you think that's so? Why do you think that's so gross and profane in dentistry, but every other business knows that's survival. I mean,
I think it just comes to a core root of understanding how the fundamentals of business works. It's a metrics. You have to have a metrics to quantify exactly what you do. So if you have that ratio, knowing for how many patients that call to how many you set up appointments, how many appointments actually to full treatment plans, how many patients actually accept the treatment plans, it starts from the very beginning of answering the phone. And if your staff is properly trained on how to answer the phone correctly and how to actually stage the patients to where you have the treatments, then you know how long the treatment takes. You don't want to have 4 or 5 patients in one operatory and have one doc try to see all of them. No, you want to know this procedure normally takes an hour and a half, 2 hours, and knowing those strategies to get patients. But if you get the patients, are you going to have them convert to a long time? Or are they going to just get your special, the $99 cleaning or whatever it may be? So the biggest thing I think for the docs is, what are you going to do to bring value? How are you going to bring value and be genuine about helping your clients? That's what it really boils down to.
Well, I think it's funny because I think whoever answers the phone is in sales and marketing. Thank you for calling today's dental. How may I help you? You ask the dentist, what is that position? They name her after a piece of furniture. Oh, she's front desk. I mean, her career is named after a piece of furniture. And I say, she doesn't look like a piece of furniture. She looks like she's answered the phone. It looks like that's telemarketing incoming calls. Mm-hmm. And if they walked out and didn't schedule for their cleaning, now it's telemarketing outbound calls. I mean, that lady is on the telephone marketing incoming, outcoming, and they go, that's gross. She's a piece of furniture. She's the front desk. I mean, it's a tough culture to bring business in. I mean, look at dentistry. It's one of the only businesses in the world where every single practice management system isn't even hooked up to an accounting system. Could you imagine running a hospital with no accounting?
That would be...
Yeah,
I couldn't imagine.
I mean, Oracle. I mean, Larry Ellison is what, the 3rd richest guy in the world? Mm-hmm. Could you imagine going to Larry Ellison and saying, well, you know, we just don't understand why any of your products are hooked up to accounting? He'd probably look at you like, what are you smoking? I mean, there's only 2 industries who don't know any accounting metrics: the Department of Motor Vehicles and your local dental office.
Those are only 2.
Government and healthcare. I mean, you only find those no metrics in healthcare and government. You'll never find it in restaurants, automotive, engineering, solar. I mean, it's when you go into a vertical and the software is not hooked up to accounting, you're welcome to government, welcome to healthcare, the 2 most mismanaged industries around the world. Mm-hmm. And I hope this next generation of kids that just walked out, I hope when they're 30 years down the road like I am and go from kids to grandkids, I hope they understand the business of dentistry.
Yeah, I believe that as in parents and as in if you have people that you're showing the ropes of life, I think learning that when you're younger really does make a big difference when you become your solo practitioner or when you become, if you want to grow to group practices. I think that knowledge when you're younger really does help out in just talking about it so you have an idea. You don't have to know exactly everything to do, but just know how business works, know that you have to. Because if you think about it, if I told you to go to the store and get some stuff, you go in your car, you go in the parking lot, and you're like, what store, what stuff? That's how it is in the dental market because you don't know. But if I told you to go to the store, go to Safeway, go down aisle 14 at the very bottom left-hand side, that's where whatever item is. That's how you have to see a practice. And I was told if you don't know how much your practice is making per hour, you're really not going to have a successful practice. And so that's one of the key factors is if you're going to have a metrics, just learn that you have to do it. There's no, in order to be successful, you have to gauge. There's no way. Or everybody would go bankrupt.
You know, another weird taboo is, you know how much the President of the United States makes, your congressman, your senator, we're sitting here right now during the NBA finals. You know how much every one of those players make. Mm-hmm. But the dentist doesn't want to be transparent with his numbers to his staff. And I say, why? And they said, well, if I give them the rent, the labor, and all this stuff, they might find out how much I make. So why is it okay to know how much, every CEO of the S&P 500, their salary and is public knowledge? Why do you think dentists don't want to be transparent with their accounting to their team?
Well, some people just are more personal. They don't want to expose any type of personal financial information because they feel it's confidential. Just simply, I feel my income is confidential to myself, but in the overall run, they have to know how much collections, they have to know production, and honestly, a lot of the staff they don't really try to calculate how much you make. You'd be surprised, they don't really care. They just want to know, okay, what's my goal? What do I need to do? When I get here, how are we going to achieve it? So if you create the culture of being transparent, don't look at it as how much I make. Look at it as how much is the practice doing, what are the collections, what is the production, and when you do it that way and don't get emotionally involved, then your whole staff they're actually on board with you. I've had one time where any type of front office or back office, anybody that asks, why does the doctor make that much? Nobody. Because they just want to know where the practice stands. They really don't know what's really going to you. They don't. Unless you expose the lease, the electricity, all the extra bills and expenses, then if somebody really wants to dig into it, they can. But honestly, they really don't. They just want to know, what are our goals? How do you see us in the future? How can we get a bonus? How can you can use that as your benefit? And so being transparent really is not as bad as it appears to be.
And I've had assistants go to hygiene school over the last 30 years. I've had two dental assistants, Kelly Bradley and Elena Gutu, go to dental school. I would just say, if they look at your deal and they say, wow, why is hygienist making more than the assistant? Go to hygiene school. When I went to dental school, there was no guy up at the front of the gate with a gun that let me in and kept all my homies out. I mean, there's 56 dental schools. They accept 6,000 people a year. If 6,000 people can get in dental school, you can. I mean, I see. I don't understand the transparency or not. And the red flag is that dental school deans need to know is 2/3 of the dentists go to the 147 metros, the urban, the cities, Dallas, Phoenix, LA, and only 1/3 go to the other half of America, who live in 19,000 small towns. For the first half of my career, they thought if you increase the number of dental schools in class size, you'll push them out further. It absolutely didn't happen. What they understand now is that if I pick a guy from downtown Dallas, he's going to stay in downtown Dallas. But if I pick him from a small town like Childress, Texas, well, he's more likely to go back to Childress. So the dental schools are realizing that if you want dentists to go to the rural, you got to get that little boy or girl that came from a town of 5,000, because somebody that grew up, that likes the plaza, likes the Cowboys, likes all that stuff, they don't want to go live in 5,000. So you got to be born there. And it's just every time I see a dentist crushing it the first year or two out of school, they're always about 2 hours away from a major airport. So if you were born and raised in Dallas, I would go to Dallas Fort Worth and airport. Do they have just one airport in Dallas? There's two in Houston and one in Dallas?
There's two in Dallas.
Oh, there's Love. There's Love and DFW. You got to be 2 hours away from that airport. It's supply and demand. There's so many damn dentists in Dallas. You go 2 hours away. I was talking to a kid last night in Iowa. Went to oh my God, he went to a town where the city was 2,000, but the county was 6,000. No dentist.
Wow.
No dentist. He won't have to take Delta, Medicaid, Medicare. He could charge whatever he wanted for his bottled water, cup of coffee, iPhone. I mean, those guys just crush it. And these, and then the other thing about the dental students, one thing I've noticed, a huge variable, if your mom stayed home and made cookies, and your dad was an employee, they didn't learn any business sitting around the table. But the kids whose mom owned a restaurant, or the mom was a dentist, or a dairy farmer, small grain, it doesn't matter. If your mom and dad own the business, You don't realize how many times when you were eating dinner or breakfast or lunch or driving to church, they're all talking about all these things you need to know: marketing, customers, HR, upset customers, staff. I mean, and by the time they walk out of dental school, they've never had an MBA like you do. But it's all back there in the noodle because they lived through it for 25 years. They lived through a quarter century of small business school. So I think those dental school deans need to just pick kids from small towns and try to pick the kids who have some family experience in free enterprise. And that's why I think about a third of the class has a dentist in the family, whether it's mom, dad, uncle, cousin, whatever. And it's not so much the dental knowledge they learned in root canals, fillings, and crowns. It was actually the fact that they understood as a business. They had a building, they had staff, they had working hours, and so they understood the business of dentistry. And I think that is far more to do with their success.
And I think that'll really help out for those who know the business side to their success is from the root. So those who don't, they have to do a lot of catching up. And that's what the biggest trend for some of the locations that don't succeed is. You want to grow, but you don't want to learn anything new. So there's no way you can grow unless you learn something new. And so just get out of your head that you can just do whatever you want, you're going to get production. No, you have to actually change. And if you do change, you'll adapt. But if you never change, then there's no growth.
You and I each got our MBA. I got out of school in '87, and by 1998, I saw corporate. I saw it getting more serious. So I enrolled. I'm only 10 minutes from Arizona State University, and they had a Monday and Wednesday night program from 6 to 10, year-round for 2 years. It was 3 trimesters, 2 classes a trimester, so 2, 4, 6, 12 classes. It was the coolest thing I ever did in my life. What would you say to a dentist if the dentist said to you, Demetrios, I'm not good in business. I'm not that good at all. My parents were both employees. I'm just not good at it. What would you say to that dentist if she said, do you think I should go to night school or the executive weekend every Saturday for 2 years and get an MBA? What would you tell her?
It depends on your goal. Some locations would rather just I would rather delegate it and have somebody do it for me. It depends on their mentality. Some are just burnt out of school. I've been going to school this long. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want any other acronyms behind my name, and I just don't want to do that. But I do encourage take some type of business courses, even if it's a night class, even if it's online or something. You can get an MBA. MBA goes a very long way. And what I learned from that is you learn your core competencies of business. You learn how the structures work, the different business models, how to do analytics. And I did several case studies, and you would imagine how these case studies work. And when you get out of a business course or human resource, whatever course it may be, you learn so much you have a better grasp. So when you do that, you have some type of knowledge. But if you don't, then you're going to keep asking somebody else for help. So I would suggest an MBA is a great thing to have. It is. I'm so thankful for it, and I learned so much. But you don't have to have one in order to be successful.
Delegate.
Delegate.
The other thing that was great is since when I went back, I forgot how old I was. So I graduated in '87. Okay, 1998. I got it in 1998. I was born in 1962. So that was, so I was 36 years old. Mm-hmm. So of that 200 people in the class, almost all of them just graduated from ASU undergrad, an hour ago. So they were all, how old are you when you get out of college? 22? So they were all 22 years old and I was 36. And every time, they put you in groups. Mm-hmm. And they'd say, okay, everybody break up into groups like 5. So you'd be in 5. Okay, now you got to pick a company and you got to say you're studying marketing or managerial economics or macroeconomics or whatever. They'd say, okay, you're going to pick a company and you're going to, here's the problem, and you're going to work on that for 2 weeks, and then the project's due. And they'd say, what company you want to do? And I'd say, oh, please do my dental office. Please do today's dental. And they're like, all right. So, I'd be trucking down 4 young, hungry kids in MBA school, opening up my whole office to them. Then, it was accounting. Here's all the books. And it was market. It was like, I mean, it was so fun to have these fresh, eager students who wanting to get an A on the paper, wanting that special insight, digging through my office every damn trimester, 6 different times. A group of kids were turning my dental office upside down, trying to make it faster, easier, better. Oh my God, it was the most fun I ever had in my life. It was, when dental school was over, I kissed the ground and almost, cried. Thank God it was over. I felt like I was just coming home from war. When MBA school was over, I'll never forget, I drove home and it was slow and it was somber, and I was thinking, God, I'll never see those 200 kids again. Now, some of them became patients and, all that, but I thought to myself, I'll never see those 200 again. It was so fun. And any business that was in the news, any business, you get to class and 2-hour classes, 6 to 10, and the instructor, first thing you start off, just a group discussion about who's ever on CNN that day.
And that's good. I really like that type of environment, because the only way to learn is if you have participation, if you ask engaging questions, talk about real life stuff. And that's the key factor, real life, not just in the books, what's going on in real life. And that made it stick more. I know when you did that, you learned more than if you were just to look at it in the book. And so that makes a key difference.
When I'm on Dentaltown and I'm reading about HR, which is what you concentrate in, HR.
Correct.
One of the biggest fears is they want to sit down and talk to their hygienist or staff member about what's bothering them, but they just can't do it. They're afraid. I mean, they'll even tell you on Dentaltown, I wish I could just go up to her and tell her blah 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 blah. But then people, did you tell her? No. And they'll even say chicken, fear, afraid. How do you coach someone to have an open, uncomfortable, honest, confrontational discussion? For instance, I'll give you a specific. The hygienist wants a raise because, of course, the earth has gone around the sun. Mm-hmm. And her raise is based on astrological charts. And the dentist is sitting there saying, my overhead is going up every year. The insurance fees are going down. My overhead's too high. I can barely pay my bills. And she wants more money. And then you say, well, so how do you coach or teach someone to have an uncomfortable conversation?
Number one, the biggest thing that I always go over is set an initial goal. Make sure you set an initial goal from the very beginning so they'll know, and you can have the metrics to track. And so if you have a hygienist, the standard is 33% of production. So you can have a production goal for them. So it takes away that subjective feel of, if I say something to them, is it really going to hurt their feelings? But no, the production is supposed to be this amount. Hey, based off of the numbers, based off the actual metrics, that takes away that ease of actually approaching somebody, because you're looking at it on an objective standpoint versus a subjective. And that is the absolute biggest factor. Even when you have an assistant, even when you have an associate, you have to go over those numbers. And those are the numbers that you use to gauge. So you can say, based off of these numbers, this is the results why you don't have a raise. Based off of this, now it takes away that stress and saying it's you're just the person that's not giving them a raise. They blame you, it's your fault. No, based off of this, you're supposed to get this much of production. So looking at this, what do you think will be the best plan? Have them self-evaluate themselves. And that's another big key factor. Evaluate themselves and ask them, what do you think you need to improve, or what do you think went well? And so those two key factors, number one, having an objective versus a subjective goal evaluation. And number two, have them self-evaluate themselves. And you'll be surprised what some of the employees say about themselves. You learn a lot.
I will go to, at this point in my life, after I've lived over half a century, 55 years, I still think the most mismanaged sectors are healthcare and government. And another one is entitlement. Like when you're working construction, when you're working plumbing, when you come out to a house to install an air conditioner, you just work until the job's done. Mm-hmm. And every industry, they're miss lunch, stay late, come early. And so many times I'm in a dental office and they're talking about high overhead. The 11 o'clock cancels from 11 to 12 while they all sit there, and someone will call up and they don't even think, well, 12 to 1 is my entitled lunch. I mean, and the 11 o'clock doesn't show. Someone calls in at 11:30 and says, well, I can be there at noon. Oh, sorry. Well, that's our lunchtime. It's like, why can't you eat now and have and do that? Same thing at the end of the day. I mean, they don't even know their break-even point for the day. Let's say it's $4,000 and they're at 3,800 and the 4 o'clock cancels and they're 200 short of just paying their bills. And someone calls up with a broke tooth and they say, well, I could be there in 15 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. We close at 5. It's like, you close at 5. I mean, I love dentists. I love my homies and whatever, but I don't even think they know how entitled and lazy they are. I mean, hopefully you had part-time jobs growing up in high school and college. I mean, I have never seen, except for a government agency like the Department of Motor Vehicles and a dental office, because look at our peers in hospitals. You know, when they hire young physicians out of school, they'll say, okay, Demetrios, you're going to do a 24-hour shift Monday at 8 a.m. till 8 a.m. the next day and Thursday 8 a.m. till 8 a.m. the next day. And you'll say, hey, man, thanks for the job. That was awesome. You hire a dentist. Tuesdays and Thursdays, instead of leaving at 5, we want you to stay till 7. What? What? I have to work every 4th Saturday? I have to work one Saturday a month from 8 to noon? It's like, dude, if you broke your leg on Christmas, every hospital in Dallas and Phoenix is fully staffed. If there was a storm and the electric lines went down, they'd be up there in cherry pickers while it's snowing and raining and still has lightning. I mean, it's so hard to look at dentists and they have this high, you know, they'll come to you and they say, well, you know, it's so tough because, you know, I went through a divorce, I'm putting 2 of my kids through college, and I'm not making enough money. It's like, dude, you don't work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Has it ever dawned on you that maybe you should just work? I mean, it's almost like they call you up and saying, how do you make a lot of money just going there 8 to 5 and always get a lunch 12 to 1, always leave at 5, and how do I make twice as much money? It just doesn't even dawn on them that, well, maybe you should work your ass off for a few years.
It's just like working out in the gym. Think about it. If you are going to do bench press, for example, and you're going to warm up, you do a set of 10 to warm up. You can't do just 2 reps, put up the bench press, and say I'm done. I can't grow muscle because I'm not actually putting in the work. So putting in the work, I think, is the most important part when you first start. And I really strongly believe that it's the desire. You can have the knowledge, you can have the skills, but the desire is not there because you have this disillusionment of this is how dentistry is supposed to be. And then you get there and the frustration is not like you thought it was and how it was portrayed. And now you're just in a whirlwind because you're just frustrated with everything that's going on. And so you want to get out of the environment as soon as you can. So I think probably because the norm is to do the 8 to 5, and there are a lot of locations that do emergencies and stay late and are open Saturday. Those are very successful locations. And so for those who are actually considering only doing 8 to 5, you might want to consider adding the extra 2 hours. Extra 2 hours, 2 days a week. You'll be surprised. A lot of people work 8 to 5. And so if you're closed when they're off, who gets the opportunity? So it depends on what opportunity they do. You can even have an associate dentist work for you on those days that you don't want to work late because you can do that. Or you can have somebody else fill in. You can do temp service. So it all depends on that person's desire. And it can be done. There's very successful practices that are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And their ultimate goal is to grow to multiple practices. And they'll work hard for it. But if you have to find out what is your main why are you really doing this, and what is your goal? And if you have no goal, you're really just going around with really blinders on.
And it's embarrassing to be a dentist to know that 8% of America's emergency room visits are a toothache because it's after 5 o'clock. It's on the weekends. I mean, 8% of the people who go to emergency room have a toothache.
Wow.
It's like, I mean, you would think that they would either, the hospitals, I mean, why can they fix a broken leg and do a bypass, remove a tumor out of my brain? And I almost think if I was going to start a DSMO, it would be, I wouldn't be renting in Walmart. I'd be renting in emergency rooms. And I am, like this year alone, I took referral pads, and I've gone to every emergency room in a 15-minute drive. I do that always with the pharmacist. I sometimes take them to lunch or dinner. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many people walk up to a pharmacist and say, what would you take for a toothache? Would you rub Ambisol on it, or would you take a Bufferin or Excedrin, or what is best for a toothache? And Brad will say, actually, it's right across the street that today's dental. Go see Howard Farran. You need to see a dentist. None of that stuff's gonna, blah 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 blah. But yeah, if I was a kid, if you didn't want to live 2 hours away, let's say for some darn reason you got to live right smack downtown Dallas, so you can just like stare at the obnoxious Cowboys home. Is that the most obnoxious team in the football? The Dallas Cowboys.
No comment.
They got to be the least humble.
Well, on sports, I love the game. So either if they win or not, I just love the sport. I'm just a big fan of sports.
You guys have a rocking hot quarterback this year.
Yes.
My gosh, who would have thought that Troy Aikman got injured and his backup was twice as good?
And take him to the playoffs. So it just happens. It's one of those things that things change. You might have those, we like to call those diamond players, that every now and then they're just a star. They just come out of nowhere, and you just would never imagine it. But it's been a pretty good transition. I think it's going to go okay, and we just have to stay humble. Just have to stay humble, just like in dentistry. Just stay humble and know that the most important part is learning.
Well, hey, you've had a very long 3 days. You lectured at Paradise Valley Scottsdale Study Club. You're at the convention for the last 2 days. And talk about working hard. After 3 long, exhausting days, it's dark outside. Here, I'll show you. It's nighttime. It's Saturday night. What did he do on the way home? Stops by some short, fat, bald guy's house. And it's still, talk about a work ethic. It's late on a Saturday night, and you're still working. You're still hustling. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming by and talking to my homies.